Hey, welcome back to God's Glory and Men's Real Stories. I'm your host, Robert Moore III. I'm excited that you could join us today for another great episode. And if you're new to this community, I want you to know that you matter here. And your story matters, no matter what chapter you're in today. So I want you to sit back with a community that cares about you in hopes that you can feel God's love as well as see God's glory in Men's Real Stories. So, my special guest today is a brother I met at a men's retreat up in Boomer, North Carolina at the Ymca Camp Harrison, who worked alongside a great staff to facilitate and create an excellent atmosphere for us to worship and to fellowship, whether we were eating together or skeet shooting. He was encouraged by our desire to walk the path that God set out for us and joined us on his own path. And today I'm excited to talk with him about that journey. So I want to welcome my brother, Jason Baker.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining me today.
I'm excited. We're looking forward to this for a while. So
Yeah, I think ever since we talked. And I want to say something about Jason here. When I remember at the camp, you were like, man, what will it take to join you on a podcast episode? I was like, that's it. That's the ticket right there. That's all it takes. You let me know you want to do it. Now, of course, I say that in that it doesn't always work that easy.
Yeah,
I've had people that have reached out to me saying, "Hey, look, I'd love to join you." And it's funny because I'm currently making kind of like a Google Doc to create a space for men to actually reach out and say, "Hey, look, I'd like to join," and it will kind of be like almost like not like an application, but just a way for men to say, "Hey, look, I'd like to join you, and this is why I think that it would be a good fit for both of us."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you punched your ticket in just right when you said, "Hey, man, look, I'd love to join you."
Thanks. Yeah.
So I'm gonna start off by letting you introduce yourself to my audience.
Perfect. Yeah. My name is Jason Baker. I'm from YMCA Camp Harrison, as Robert said. That's not where I'm originally from. I'm from Jefferson, North Carolina, which is in the mountains of North Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's up in that little corner. Very proud of where I'm from. I love the mountain area. Part of my story is kind of how I ended up at Camp Harrison, and my experience with Christianity has been somewhat tumultuous, but an adventure. And
Right.
and I'm so thankful that Robert allowed me to kind of share a little bit about myself and kind of the walk and how important it is for men to know what that is and to jump on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thanks.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm glad you're here, man. I mean, because, it's one thing when I may try to talk to men about the path, about the journey, about that walk with God, and how, sometimes it goes beyond the church. It goes beyond that Sunday that you give him and the time that you may spend, just kind of like saying that, hey, look, I'm doing all the Christian things. I'm showing up as the Christian guy.
Yeah.
But then when, that time expires and we step away from church and everything, it's just like, well, I got a life to live now. I got to get back to being the guy I am for work, or the guy I am for my family, or the guy I am for my friends. And so we kind of like put that walk to the side. We kind of like say, okay, well, I'll get back to it. I'll see you on Sunday again. Mm-hmm. And, everything will be great again, and we'll say all the right things and all that. So I like to create that space where men can feel like, okay, so on this journey, on this walk, is it going to be like a perfect walk? Is it going to be a straight road? Is it going to be, how's it going to look? And what's it going to look like? And am I going to feel, as they say, emasculated to where I feel like, man, this,
you lose your personality.
Yeah. I feel like, as a guy one time described it, he was like, churchmen sometimes, or church boys sometimes feel very much like boring. Like, oh man, that's boring.
Slacks
like,
and pull up.
Man, yeah. Like, oh man, this life is boring. Like, I don't want that. You guys can have that. So I'm gonna let you I'm gonna let you kind of like dive in. You know how I tell people, man, this is so like just organic, and that the conversation. I am half the time just as surprised as everybody else. Mm-hmm. So I'll let you just start off wherever you want to start. Man. This is your show.
Well,
man.
So I'm someone that needs context a lot of times in what I'm learning or what I'm trying to understand. I will do as much as I can to learn about it before I even keep diving in. Mm-hmm. And that's with anything. Like if it's movies, books, I want to know, why is this movie being out there? Why is this book, why do I need to learn how to shoot shotguns at camp, or just stuff like that. Like, I gotta know. And it's people the same way too. I'll embarrass myself just to get to know someone and why they do things the way they do. I got to know. But for me, just for the podcast itself, I like sharing a little bit about my church history and my experience before I jumped on the walk. And then, we can go from there if you're okay with that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, like I said, I grew up in Jefferson, North Carolina. My family history is pretty crazy and chaotic. My grandmother raised me and 3 other brothers, and our younger cousin was in and out of the house too. So a lot of times there's 4 to 5 boys and our grandmother. And we were raised in the mountains of North Carolina. And kind of the tricky thing about mountain folk is some people don't know that they're poor. And some people will, I guess, idolize that they're poor, at the same time. And so we grew up in a really rural area, and so we weren't near Asheville. We're not near some of those bigger mountain towns. We're near closer to Boone. And so some of the early experiences that I had in church were what my parents, or my grandmother, I should say, dropped me into. And so my grandmother did not grow up a believer. I would say that they probably went to church, but I don't think she knew what that meant. And her entire life has been pretty chaotic. Her husband at the time was in the Navy, and they were in multiple different cities and across the world doing that lifestyle. And that brought up a lot of different family drama. They had kids together, but my grandpa didn't believe that 2 of them were his. And so things like that kind of festered. And there was a moment in my grandmother's and grandfather's relationship where it was, hey, you're going to church, you're doing this, and if we have anything else, if you don't agree to this kind of thing, you can go home with your parents and we'll just call it what it is. And so I would say my grandfather felt like he had a responsibility to them. I'm not necessarily going to claim that he loved being a father or a husband. I just think he felt responsible. And so I think he managed the family more than fathered the family. And so my grandmother was given a choice, and she chose the one that would allow me to be here today. And so she got into church, and it was pretty much that. And so church was an every week thing. She went to a Methodist church, and that's the church I grew up going to. If you don't know what Methodist churches are, they broke away from the Church of England. Church of England broke away from the Catholic Church back in Henry VIII stuff. So there's a little church history for you. But so I grew up in a very liturgical setting. And so, the pews were in there, and it was a very old church. So there was a lot of older people. If there were youth in the group, it was grandkids of people that had been going there since their parents had been going there.
Gotcha,
and so
right.
I would say that the amount of Christians that were in that church were very limited. Did they know who Jesus was, what he did in terms of a historical story? Yes. Was there discipleship? Was the Holy Spirit convincing people to love other people because that's what we were designed to do? Probably not. And so with that being said, I grew up also in an area where a church was pretty much on every street corner. Every mile was a different church, because back in the day, a family would create a church in a small community. There was only one family up this holler or up this hill,
right.
And so they would all go to the same church. Well, if there was some family drama, they'd say, peace out. We're going to build another church a mile down or across the street. Call it a different name, but it's the same fundamental Baptist kind of philosophy and tradition. And so I had a lot of friends growing up that were in that scene too. And so my first experience with what I would say New Age church is, or what the culture is right now in church, was in high school, and we would go to these conferences, or we'd go to stuff where a bunch of youth would be, a rally or something like that, and it'd be like Tim Tebow speaking, and then a bunch of cool bands that would have, Christian songs or Toby Mac, Winterfest, Winter Jam, all that stuff. That was my first experience with like, I would say American church culture. I grew up in a different culture, and it was a little bit more fundamental, or it was the complete opposite. And so I, first off, value that experience. I learned a lot about who Jesus was, what my purpose is as a believer, even though I wasn't a believer. I understood a lot of the tenets of what the church was responsible for and what Christians are responsible for. And I was blessed, man. I did grow up with 4 to 5 brothers at a time with our grandmother raising us. We had nothing. But the amount of things that produced was something that changed my perspective. And I had coaches and people in our church, men that would father me and extend their resources, extend their hand to share and show what it means to become a man in their eyes, and would lead me. And I valued that a lot. And I still am thankful for those experiences. It really did shape me. It molded me into valuing things other than possession and high society life or whatever it is. It made me thankful, and I'm very I'm still very thankful for all those things. I made a list like a couple months ago of all the people that I remember spending a lot of time discipling me or valuing me for whatever reason and developing me. And so I text them every once in a while just to let them know I'm still thinking about them, and I do value them a lot. But that's not because I want to, share something. I think that has a lot to do with what Jesus has already done in my heart, and changed me. And so I think the world kind of will oftentimes take that situation, my experience, and put you in a box of, well, if you had this kind of raising, that means you're probably in this mental state, or you're probably in this physical state, and you need this, this, and this to be okay.
They try to self-diagnose you early just because of where you come from.
Come on. Yeah. Yep. And that's anywhere.
Yeah.
It's in the mountains of North Carolina. It's in the cities of Charlotte.
Yep.
It's anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And it doesn't always come in the same package that our government or the people of the world would show us. Mm-hmm. It can come in the same, like, the product will be the same but in a different box from people you go to church with, from people that live a block over that are in a better situation than you are.
Yep.
And so it's the same, but it's in a different package, and or packaging, I should say. And so it's frustrating, but it's something that I think our culture, and when I say our culture, I mean people that have this experience, need to share more often and say, like, listen, man, we did grow up poor, things were tough, but it shaped me.
Right.
I have an amazing outlook on life because of it. And I say all those things to kind of shoot me into college. I went to East Tennessee State University. I was the first person in my family to kind of go to college after high school. And I was going to be the first person to graduate from college. That did not work out, and I'll explain later. But it was an exciting period. It was something that I'd never really stepped into. And I think my season as a Christian in high school and my experience in Christianity growing up was about to be put to the test, kind of thing.
I like that.
And so, you say that. I think a lot of people from our community will go to church and do the church thing until they go to college, and then it's like, oh, they're gonna make it or not? Are they gonna be a Christian when they come back? All this stuff. A lot of times they don't come back Christians, and it's tough. But and I'll tell you, my college experience was incredible too, and it didn't work the way I wanted it to. And so I'll say God put me in the place that He wanted me to be in. there was a new season that God put me in, and I didn't want it or I didn't expect it, but I was in it. And so after graduating high school, going to East Tennessee State, which was not my number one choice, that was not on my radar until April of that year,
right? Which
is late for college decisions. If you didn't know, if you did not know, it's late.
I was right there with you.
I had plans. God said, "Not for you, sir. Not right. for you." And at the time, I was really frustrated about it, and I took that with me to school. And I didn't necessarily want to be at ETSU at the beginning, and I didn't really try to make an effort to really enjoy it or really, really live in it. And so God did another thing. At college fairs, you put your name and information down, they'll contact you, and you do that 100 times. You don't really know who you're talking to when they text you. But this guy named AJ Babel, he texted me out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, I noticed you put a card in our thing. I'd love to hang out and have lunch with you and just talk about Jesus." And I'm not going to shy away from that conversation. Yeah, let's talk about Jesus. I was a Christian of about 3 years at the time. I knew I was secure in my salvation. Once again, we talk about this at Outpost all the time. You may know the walk, but you may not be on the walk.
Right.
You may not be walking.
Right.
I didn't even know there was a walk to be had.
And so there's more to this?
Yeah. So I think about it this way. And this is the Bible Project kind of shaping my perspective a little bit on this. But, the Bible Project has this theme where heaven and earth are reunited. And so after Adam and Eve happened, they kind of came apart. And so when Jesus happened, that was a moment of reuniting. And so when we become Christians, heaven and earth is reunited in our hearts. And so, like and I'm going to dive into this later because I think it's a good word. But that moment when I became a Christian and I realized, like, this world is much different now that my eyes are open and I could see the kingdom in my heart. I'm just sitting here watching it happen to me, and I'm not walking in it. I'm not walking on these streets that God has reunited. I'm not walking in this world that's already been redeemed on the cross. Mm-hmm. I'm just staring at it. And for 3 years, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know that wasn't even in my mind at the time. These are all thoughts that I've had, well after my conversion to Christianity. And so when I got to college, going back to that conversation with AJ, I shared with him, I was a believer. This is awesome. I'm a Christian. Thanks for talking to me. He invited me to his campus ministries hangout night or whatever, and I met some other staff members, and I knew I had to go to a church at some point. And so I started going to church with these guys, and about 2 to 3 months in, I'm regularly doing this with these men. These men are inviting me to their space, their life. We're asking me questions no one had ever asked me before, being very intentional about the way we live, using words that I had never heard of before. And for the first time, I felt like I was walking. I was crawling, really, because there were times where I didn't want to listen.
Right.
It was college. I gotta do the college scene too.
Right.
So I was crawling. I'm gonna call it that. There were moments where I would happily jump in and serve and know what I'm doing and feel the presence. Like God was flowing His love and His energy out to these people and sharing, I think, what Jesus is teaching. But it wasn't what I was doing. It wasn't my heart that was doing it. It was Jesus.
Right.
And I firmly believe that. Can't take credit for all that stuff.
Right.
That's His.
Right.
And so as I'm keeping on in this tradition, I really grew. Like I was walking, or I was crawling, and then I was toddler walking, and I started really making some strides, and then life will drag you back down. I left college, I came back home. And life at college was steady, consistent, intentional. These men were meeting with me on a regular basis. And I spent my first summer at camp outside of college, and I remember I just was like, the world does not operate the same way when I'm out here. And it's funny, you guys come to camp. You guys come to camp for this moment. Our campers come to this camp for this moment. Counselors are like, man, this is where I get my Jesus time. For the first time in my life, I was going to this space, and I wasn't feeling it. Like, I felt like I was on a different level of consistency, and it was very, I'm going to call it pharisaical. I was very much posing.
Right.
I wanted to live a life that all these other counselors were doing, but I was like remembering my intentional discipleship there, and then I was like, you guys aren't doing it right. I'm just not going to do it, and it just, I burned so many relationships doing that. I just didn't meet them where they're at. I didn't meet myself where I was at and tell myself to, like, calm down.
Right,
kind of.
Right.
I was very zealous,
Right.
And my honeymoon phase was over. It was over at that point.
Right.
I was in this state of, like, man, this world sucks. And I really started making poor decisions, like my college life wasn't the same, really. I didn't go to class the way I should. I didn't intentionally do school the way I needed to. And there were times where I was putting on this pose for people and go and party somewhere else. When I turned 21, I kind of let loose again, and I just kind of let the Lord and the world be at different phases. I was being a poser,
right?
And
living one way, one
absolutely,
time, and doing it,
yeah. And so in 2017, so this is my sophomore year of college. This is right after I think I turned 21 that year. There was a moment like I felt like I need to start taking this a little bit more seriously and taking my walk more seriously. But it was really a faint moment. And so what happened was, at the time my girlfriend broke up with me, all this stuff happened at one time, and I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm at my low as a Christian. This is worse than growing up and not having electricity or water or anything like that crap. I was pissed, and I was mad at God. I was mad at myself for not being the man I should be, and really not caring for myself, stuff like that. And some of the first moments of growth again were saying that stuff, saying how I felt, and saying how much crap I needed to work on, or much whatever it was, how much I felt like needed to be redeemed at the moment. Saying that stuff to other men really shaped the next years to now kind of moment for me. And I remember just meeting with a guy that was discipling me at the time, and in my headspace, that was designated for Tuesday mornings or Wednesday nights or whatever. It wasn't an all the time thing. Became an all the time thing, and I'm back to this consistency again. And I'm not riding this high. I'm not living in this low. I'm finally at a place where I'm like looking at the world around me consistently. I'm meeting people where I'm at, or where they're at. They're meeting me where I'm at. My disciplers are constantly in my life, texting me, calling me. We're meeting on a regular basis. We're talking about the things that if I isolated myself on, would just dig deeper hole, and who knows?
Right. Right.
And I think that's that moment of vulnerability, that moment of actually taking the time to talk to a discipler, someone who values your faith, values you, and sharing those things, and they give you hope and give you grace and give you, those footholds to really start walking again.
Right.
If you don't take advantage of that, your life could go into this deep chasm of whatever.
Right. So now, for people in my audience who don't know what a discipler is, or what a disciple is, or understand that, can you break that down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I know there may be some people that are like, okay, wait a minute, how do I get one of those? What is that?
Yes. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Personally, some of it's personal, some of it's
right.
I think biblically based. Some of it is personal, but first off, as a man or as a female, I would prefer you to seek out an older or a slightly older version of yourself. Okay. Finding that person, and when I say this, I would never ask a female to lead me. I don't know what females have to go through on a daily basis, and a male shouldn't.
Well, vice versa.
Yeah,
she don't know what
I shouldn't lead a female. Like, they're going to be going through some things that is going to be hard for themselves, and I can't lead them in that. I don't know what they're going to experience on a really fiber level, and
right.
Women do, and men know what men need to know,
right? Which is
why Uprising is so impactful at times. Well, not at times. It's impactful. So
it's got its moments though, where it's like, oh, this is scary.
Yeah. And so for me personally, meeting a guy that's older than me, in my church, that recognizes me, and that I've shared my life with, and when I mean share, I mean like verbally, and then spent quality amount of time with. And that person is not responsible for your actions, but is responsible for sharing the truth, being there at a moment's notice kind of thing, your ride or die guy. And the reason I say older is because they've lived life longer than you. And if they're emotionally and physically more mature than you, it's something to strive after too, So at different times in my life, they've been really old guys, younger family guys, or in between. And I think there's something of value in a church where that's your population. It's really hard to live or strive or be discipled in a church where it's just young guys. It's really hard.
Or just women.
Or just old people. Or just family people. Because so many people have so many amazing gifts to bring to this union a little bit. And I think the church body benefits from a diverse community. Right. And so,
perspectives.
Yeah. And when I was in college, I was going to this church called Redeemer Community Church. And they had this 11 o'clock service specifically for college students. And I remember going there the first couple months, really, my first couple experiences was that moment, because everybody doesn't want to get up early in the morning to go to church.
Oh, I got it. I understood.
But the families weren't going at 11. The families were going at 9. And I mean, not just families, but like that's where the people that lived in Johnson City, that was their community. Like, that's where they met. And so my mind was like, I want to be with those people, because they want to see the city. They want to see the community. They want to see the city grow spiritually. And they are the people that are in these businesses or in the fiber of the city itself. And it's the most diverse population of the church. And so the college group was fun, and I saw my buddy, and I was in fraternity, so I see my fraternity brothers, or I see my my crew. I went to crew in college. Those people, I'd wave, and we do our church thing and leave and go eat afterwards.
Right.
But 9 o'clock is where someone's holding me by the hand or coaching me on my walk. Those are where my disciplers are.
Okay.
And so if you're at a church, and I mean, this is personal preference, I don't think there's a lot. I mean, I could probably point at some verses that I don't have on hand on why it's important to go to a church that has a diverse population of age and nationality and whatever.
Right.
I'm telling you that is where the opportunity for yourself to grow into the thing that you're meant to be in that season of your life, that's where it's going to be. Yeah. And don't go to church with your buddy because it's easy. Go to church because it's hard, and there's going to be people there that actually challenge you, that actually love on you, and speak truth in your life. And that isn't church hurt, people. I just want to say that.
Yeah.
If someone speaks truth in your life, That's not church hurt.
Right. I'm glad you said that because I'm glad you said that because you know what? I even say that I like how you said make sure you go somewhere and maybe not make it be like a thing of like, oh, my buddy goes, so I'm gonna go. Because a lot of times we take the version of us that we've been around our buddies.
Your buddy may be on a different walk, man.
Yeah. But you have to also understand that the walk that you want to take it may not align with the walk that you've taken with your buddy.
He's gonna be in a different season. Yeah. Or she's going to be in a different season than you. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong. You know, the people that have discipled me are in completely different seasons than I'm currently in. And there's nothing wrong with having someone with you in the same season. And being discipled by someone is really important. And I think, just challenging people to be intentional about where they go to church and why they go to church,
right? And
who they're interacting with at the church, and what's the purposes of the church. And I could say worry about the theology or worry about some of that stuff, but I would like to say I'm in a church right now, the season of life that I'm in, where we don't meet the same way as the way I grew up. Like I go to a very kind of charismatic church, and I'm hearing terminology that I did not hear growing up. We don't have a real structure to our service, and it's hard for me. It's really hard for me. If I had it my way, it wouldn't be that way. But I don't think that's I don't think that's the season and I'm allowed to make preferences in.
Right.
And so I think it's just important to be intentional about where you're going and feel like God is leading you with people that are leading you and discipling you in. And right now, the person that disciples me is older than me, not significantly. He's 7 years older than me, and he's David, man, and I'm Jonathan. I'm just following him. Everything he does, I want to do. Even if it's hard, I mean, it's significantly harder. And you've met that guy. His name's Cole. He's got the red mustache. He works in the kitchen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Cole's Robin Hood. I'm Little John. I'm at his side. He's my guy. And he's taught me some things over the past 3 years that have helped me walk harder and will continue to help my walk down the road. And I'll say this, my disciplers have changed. Every season, like I said, every season of my life, sometimes there's one or more than one discipler. And I think God will lead that person in your life, and it'll be very clear. And I'm not saying that's the case every time. Sometimes it's not clear until you guys talk and have that relationship built and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's been clear for me. And so I remember the first time I got with Cole. I knew who he was from previous seasons of my life, but I didn't know who he was and where his faith came from or how developed it was or anything like that. But once I found out, it was like, you're my disciple, man. You're discipling me, just so you know.
So what was it? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And you don't have to give me specifics, but like, was there a moment where, as you guys were talking and you were getting to know him, there was something that resonated that was like, dude, you're like 5 years ahead of me.
Yeah.
And you're clearly walking in the same path that I was already walking, that I need to know what it was that changed and adjusted you.
Well, we had similar church history. Like, he grew up in a very liturgical setting too. He grew up in a Presbyterian church, which isn't very distant from a Methodist experience, but that wasn't that's not what sold me. He lives his life very much like John the Baptist lives his life. He's a man of the land. He's from the same area as I'm from. Is not scared to jump in the lake at freezing temperatures, and he's a man's man, kind of. That's also not what sold me. But those are the pieces of him that were like, that's really cool, to know someone or want to follow someone that has those characteristics. What sold me was, one, his aptitude on the gospel and how important it was to live that out in all moments of your life. He was walking the walk, like and you know when a man is walking the walk, you know, you can tell the difference.
Tell by the conversation, you
Absolutely.
can tell by the way he moves, you can tell by his fruit, you can
and this is crazy. There's people in the world that walk with gait and you know their loins are girded and they're ready to go, but they're fighting a fight they'll inevitably lose, and so there's a lack of confidence even when they talk sometimes, or there's a lack of just strength in the mind. There's a lack of physical strength even sometimes where you know they're about to crumble, and it may be like they lose their job, they'll just crumble. They're men of God or women of God that are very developed in their faith and walk with a certain gait or have their loins girded. Those men and women can't be touched, in my opinion. There is nothing on this world that can really shake them. And even if and this is what I love about Cole, is Cole doesn't worry about where his bed is, doesn't worry about where his car is, doesn't worry about where he's going to get his next meal. And I think that is just so faithful, because he knows God will provide. And he has a car, he has a bed, he has multiple beds in different, his parents' house. He's got a bed at camp, and he's got people around the country that would happily let him stay at their house. But it's because of who Cole is. Cole has that fire, that real desire to be discipled and to disciple people, because he knows that is what changes the world and changes the perspective of Christians to stop thinking about the mundane, the cup life, whatever it is, and start really thinking about this new, redeemed world around them. And they're walking on a path where, Robert, it's not, we're sitting at this physical table, but the reality of the world is a completely different paradox. We're having a meal together. Spiritual food is happening right now. And we're drinking actual water, but our souls are being quenched. We're talking about the truth, and it's absolutely nothing that we could do. There's nothing you, Robert, me, Jason, Cole, any of us have ever done to live that life or be in this redeemed world. It's what Jesus did on the cross 2,000 years ago, and what he promised thousands of years before that. And so, if you have that mindset, if you truly do live in that mindset, nothing could shake you, man. And the world might hit you so hard, but it's you'll have a faith like Job. It still won't shake you.
I love that. And that's so true.
Yeah. I've met a lot of Christian men who have been hit very hard in life, have lost wives, children, lost their job, their house or whatever, and the strongest men respond with faith, with faithfulness to Jesus.
But after those things, I will say though, there are times where I feel like we're all tested, and I think that when we do come against certain storms that we haven't seen previously in our life, it creates a space where we either go to our faith or we just fall, we just crumble under the pressure of everything. And sometimes it could be little things that have been building up over time that we didn't really care too much for and we didn't really spend much time with, but it's in those moments where we sit there and we realize, wait a minute, this was like the one pebble that just caused everything to fall apart. And as much as there's some men that may have had the faith to get through it all, that may have had the faith to say, you know what, God's going to provide, God's going to see me through this. But there are times where I feel like we're tested to where it's like, God, I didn't expect this stuff. Like where are you at in this? And it creates that angry space that you were talking about, where you're just angry at God. Like, okay, God, what happened? Like, why would you send this? Like, I have been faithful to you. What is going on? And we don't maybe look at it from a standpoint of like, what are you trying to show me in this storm that's going to build up my faith to take me into a season that you are preparing me for?
And I never said it would be easy.
Yeah,
I never said those guys
No.
were in that place because it was easy.
Right.
You know, and you're right. The pebble can knock down the whole foundation. I think I don't want to take away from the experiences other people have had. I don't want to shy away from, and I say this about Cole because I know Cole very well, and you know, Cole hasn't really, you know, hit something that is super crazy, and there are Christians that have experienced those things, and it's been really hard for them. So I don't want to sit here and say that life isn't going to be easy.
Right.
You know, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard on different levels for different people. It may be hard for me to be faithful to Christ if, you know, I lose my job and I can't work at camp or whatever it may be. That'll be hard for me, but that might be easy for somebody else. And what may be hard for them is like losing their cousin or losing their grandparents or whatever it is.
Right.
So I can't say the experience is hard or not hard. It is. It's
Right.
very much hard. I just, you know, when I say that all those men that I know that walk with this certain gait or whatever, it's because they were faithful even when it was hard.
Right.
And they did the things that that you encourage men to do, and that I think Jesus encourages men to do, and talk about the hard stuff and,
Right.
and have a circle where there's encouragement, there's grace, and there is actual truth in their circle, and you know, that they live life in a different way. And I think that's the walk in itself. You know, I don't know what you think of when you think of this actual walk, but I don't think of walking down the sidewalk where you see all the, you know, these buildings, or, you know, I think of a completely different city that I haven't even thought about. You know, it is a true Matrix moment. Like it's not the same.
Right.
You're not. These buildings become just digital things in your mind or whatever. You start seeing things that, you know, you start seeing people differently. You start seeing physical things differently.
Yeah.
You know, when the church in Italy that caught on fire, the Notre Dame church.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a lot of people really upset about it, you know, and buildings are beautiful. Churches are beautiful churches, whatever.
Right.
It was a beautiful building, but
Yeah.
like, it's just a building.
Yeah, right. It's not like God lived there.
Yeah.
And he was homeless now.
Yeah,
it
it's
was
not,
more of like you guys are the community.
it's just a building.
Right.
Yeah. And the reason I'm encouraged to not think of that kind of stuff is that there are churches in China right now that meet in a basement, that meet in a bathroom, and their faith is much stronger than the people that go to those churches.
Yes.
You know, and they face death every day.
Yeah.
You know, I and the people in South America that have, it doesn't matter the denomination, Catholic or Protestant, whatever it may be, have faced death several times and are one of our leading believing groups. And I'll listen to the voice of any person that lives in that kind of community, that kind of atmosphere, over
a voice that's here where you know it's like,
it's
it's really hard to be a Christian. It's like, dude.
And once again, I want to say that the experience, it could still be hard for our group. You know, we do have to, you know, share some grace there, but it is putting our minds in perspective. Like, at this moment right now, Christians aren't being killed on the street
or persecuted
here on a very regular basis. It sometimes feels that way when you're on social media or you're listening to the news, but we are in a place where we can still speak our minds and really meet at a church, for now. I say that for now. But just putting your mind in perspective of the people that are living the gospel out and seeing it being shared and seeing it really grow and into fruit in different areas of the world is so unique. And it's not unique. It's just it's divine.
Right.
It's ordained.
Right.
And they're not arguing about denomination right now. They're
Right.
definitely not arguing about what kind of carpet's in their bathroom or what kind of carpet's in their basement. They're not arguing on some of the more trivial things that our churches right here in America are arguing about.
Right.
They're just thankful people are meeting there, knowing Jesus on an intentional level, and doing what they can to serve the people in those areas. I think that's cool. I think it's what our hearts are meant for. And the walk, like I said, they're living it. And this is the thing. Like I said, this transcendent kingdom that is sitting on earth right now may not be visually. You can't probably see it, but it's in our hearts. They have the sweet buildings in that transcendent kingdom. Those churches in China, those churches in Africa, or those churches in Eastern Europe, or South America, where they're meeting in a bathroom, but their space is holy.
Right.
Their space is holy.
Right.
And when you think of the tabernacle in the Old Testament and the temple that David built, like those spaces.
Right.
That's in Asia right now.
Right.
Those are in Africa right now, and they're here. They are here, but you got to find them. You got to look.
Yeah.
And I know you go to Elevation, and a lot of our guys go to Elevation, and I really don't have anything seriously to say about Elevation, but it's one of those things that I look at that church group. There's thousands of people going there. There's thousands of people experiencing a gospel setting, and yet it's like where are they? Like when tragedy happens in a city, or when and I'm thinking of it transcendently, not necessarily specifically the
right
church you go to, but
right.
It's really hard to see it. And I see it in my own community. The churches that are in my community that are big and bold and wear the T-shirts, and where are they when our homeless guy, we only have one or two homeless guys that are on the street in Wilkesboro, but where are they like right now? Are they inviting this person in? Is there a sense of it doesn't matter what they're going through, they're going to trust that the best thing will happen? Kind of like that movie clip in Mission Uprising when that priest took the robber in.
Yeah.
Why are our hearts not why can't we do that? Here. Why can't we do that in America?
Like bring them in.
Yeah.
And say, well,
why do we put gates on parking lots? Why do we? And I know there's a different. I know there's so many more things to that. I know it's not as cut and dry or black and white as that. It's definitely not, but it is really hard to see that when there's a position or there's a church in communities where people are dying on a regular basis. Their doors are open and they're willing to accept death to believe in Jesus.
Right.
And I guess are we willing to have issues or have trouble managing our communities, even if it means there's hard conversations, or is our church constantly meeting at the street corner to be with these people that are constantly at the street corner, meeting in areas where there is a lot of drug activity, and just praying there, being there to be with people that are stuck in messed up world or whatever.
Well, the thing is, I think a lot of times, and I realized this through another church organization, that a lot of times that stuff is happening. It's like, imagine how real it is when you see it on a video every time they're doing it, or you see them showing up and they're bringing news cameras. Like how real is it then? Mm-hmm. And the thing is a lot of times we want to clean up the streets and give them somewhere to stay, but that's where most of the homeless shelters were built out of. Yeah. They were created out of church ministries. Yeah. And even though that's probably outgrown the church ministry sometimes, it's like we want to clean up everything, but I think that it's going to take more than just the church doing that, which is why if you leave it up to a church just to do it, think about it, we are the ones who are going there, whether it be through our tithes and offering or whether it be through our time. A lot of times we're supposed to show up and be the hands and feet of Christ, and that we show up and say, how can I help? What can I do? Yeah. And a lot of times we say, well, why can't the church do that? And we're asking the wrong people, because it's almost like we should look in a mirror and say, why can't you do that?
Yeah. And I don't say this from a pedestal of I do this every week or anything.
Right.
But it is like, it's really just kind of hard to say that or to feel that when like the smoke machine that just got purchased is like $10,000 or whatever. I don't know how much smoke machines are, but the smoke machine in my church is huge, and I'm like, is that really necessary? Like, can we use that resource somewhere else? I don't know. Can we use it to beef up our pantry, or to pay someone to do those hard conversations? I don't know. I know that's really trivial and more complex than I guess when I'm explaining it to, but that's some of the things I have struggled with, and or I have trouble understanding with really big churches. And
do you feel like that changes your relationship with God, though? I get that a lot of times we look at it from a standpoint of it may change the relationship we have with certain churches, but do you feel like that changes the way you approach God and what God has or is trying to do through you?
Yes and no. I'm going to speak out both sides of my mouth right now, but it does, because it's like, okay, God, are you going to fix this? Are you going to redeem it, or not? And you're like, when's that timetable going to happen? I'm trying to speed up God's timing, or I'm trying to figure out what God's timing is, stuff like that. I'm worrying about things that I have absolutely no control over whatsoever. Right. And then no, because I obviously wouldn't be going to this church if I didn't feel like God was like, here, this is where you're going to be right now. It's like, there'll be moments where I'm like, I don't want to go to church, or I don't want to go to this small group, because all I'm going to be doing is getting frustrated about how the terminology or what we're actually saying is more important than this, or some other stuff like that, and how we're actually loving each other outside of these meetings. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
No, you good.
I just knocked the camera. Or meeting outside of these meetings, like are they approaching people the way they keep talking to me, outside of this small group space or outside of this church meeting? Because it's just really hard.
But you know what? It's funny. I tell people, and this is whether you're in the church or out of the church. There are so many factors of life that we can't control, and a lot of times we look to certain organizations, different churches, different people to do something because they have the resources, and we're the ones with the huge agitation to it.
Yeah.
And so we're looking to them like, hey, look, help them. Like why aren't you helping them? So people get agitated because what ends up happening is that they're looking for somebody else to fix the problem that bothers us the most. And I've actually realized that sometimes God gives us this agitation. I call it a unique agitation, as Darius Daniels said, to be bothered by certain things that he actually wants us to address. But we say to ourselves, yeah, but I don't have the resources. I don't have what it takes to do that. They do. Like, why should I address it? Why should I deal with that? Why should I be called into that area? Like, I don't have what it takes to do it. But a lot of times we tell ourselves that, not realizing that he's given us everything we need. And then it's in stepping out in faith that he continues to provide for us exactly what else we need, whether it be the resources, whether it be the finances, to actually help people in an area that it bothers me, like, and it's almost like a timetable of you waiting for somebody else to make that decision, but he's like, no, the timetable is on you. Like, right now, this is something that is bothering you to the point where it's like, wow, so what are you waiting on? Like, I've given you everything you need to do this. Well, I've given it to you.
And this is also another struggle I have too, is it does make sense that God will provide even when it feels like you're getting ready to go jump into this thing, or you feel like this is your purpose or whatever. But what if he doesn't? Like, what if it's not if you're not ready for that? Like, I thought for a while, like, I was going to school to be a football coach or a soccer, whatever. And I felt like, oh man, I'm going here for a reason. I'm starting to do these things. I'm starting to get in this circle now. I'm in this circle, and it's like, no, you're not. boom, you're somewhere else.
Right. Almost like a redirection.
Yeah, and so I think sometimes when that happens is the conversations of like, well, what's my purpose then? Why do I want to be here? Why do I follow Jesus? If I'm just not going to get the blessing that
thank you for joining
it feels like I'm about to get.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right. With Jason Baker. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation so far. I'm looking forward to the second part of our conversation coming soon. Be blessed.
We appreciate you listening today and hope that if you enjoyed this episode, you'll like and subscribe and also listen to past episodes. We hope to bring you great future content as well. Please comment your thoughts on this episode as well as leave any prayer requests below so that this community can pray alongside you. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at God's Glory and Israel Stories.
Brothers, we understand how the thoughts of even facing your own past and current story and the pain and hurt that come along with this is no easy task. But you're not alone, as you hear in these episodes. Nor has God forgotten you or left your side, as He's in it with you, fighting alongside you through the storms of life. He loves and has already forgiven you, no matter what you have done, and He wants a relationship with you. Your healing, freedom, and growth are important to God and to us as well. Maybe you're considering giving up or need someone to talk to. Here are a few resources that exist that we hope can shine a light into that dark place you're in. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number is 1-800-273-8255. If you need support but are not in crisis, consider reaching out to a warm line with individuals who would love to talk with you. Speaking to someone on these calls is typically free and confidential and run by people who understand what it's like to struggle in life. Find a local number by going to warmline.org.